Welcome back to Community Kind. My name's Alicia Curtis. If you've ever made a donation and found yourself wondering, does my money actually really make a difference? And how are these decisions really made? You're definitely not alone. It's really the number one question that we get. Today, we're pulling back the curtains on the grants process. And I'm joined by our grants chair, Kristy Rodwell. I want to dig into what it means to give well, because you have said that you're a passionate social investor, not a donor, but an investor. So can you tell me what the difference is there?
Look, I think when you're talking about social investment and you're understanding that you're making a investment to derive a return, and it's not a financial return if you're investing, for instance, in the stock market, it's a social return in terms of outcomes against a cause or against a problem. And we can do that well. And it's what I've always tried to do with 100 Women in terms of setting up our processes and our structures and our frameworks to make sure that the money that is trusted to us very generously by our members is invested to derive those social returns. It's not straightforward and it's really tricky. Financial investing is generally formulaic. It's repeatable. It can occur successfully in one market and you can transfer it and it occurs successfully in the other market, as long as, broadly speaking, the parameters are the same. But as we know, our social challenges, and especially, the challenges that have been with us for a really long time, some of our real wicked problems, they get called in the philanthropic or social investment scene, they need solutions that are unique to that community, to that place, to that beneficiary group. Even different cohorts will be experiencing the same type of problem, but they'll experience it differently. So yes, people will hear me talk about a social investment as both an art and a science, because there is underlying principles to it with respect to established processes that work and can be repeatable, or their best practice and their established ways of working and ways of thinking about social investment. But as I've just said, the art then comes into understanding how's this community set up? What's going on specifically for this community, or what's going on specifically for this beneficiary group? So it really is a blend of an art and a science.
It's having an understanding, as you say, of the social issues, how they affect different communities in different places, the particular interventions that organisations are proposing, and the collaborations of those organisations working, most of the time with many different organisations. So yes, absolutely an art and a science. And I suppose that's where you have the benefit of that grants committee, and the collective understanding of different parts of the puzzles that come from our different members who are able to contribute to that process. So when we're talking about giving well, and you've outlined this whole process, I want to just take us back to this pointy end of the process where we've got lots of really compelling applications sitting in front of us, lots of great organisations doing exceptional social change work. When you have that final list and you're supporting our grants committee to distinguish between what's a yes and what's a no, what gets put forward to our members, what goes through your head in those moments?
Sure. A lot. What is at the heart of those difficult decisions right at that pointy end is our members. Our members have generously handed over their hard-earned cash to fund the grants pool, and we're looking for projects that are compelling and that are going to resonate with our members and that are going to have that member say, yeah, you know what? 100 Women is a great investment of my philanthropic dollars. I'm really happy to be a member and I'm going to sign up next year. We don't have a grant pool. We don't have a granting program. without our members. So they are at the heart of that process. But having said that, there's a few other considerations as well. And look, sometimes we do go to understand what's the financial capacity of this organisation. And it might not be simply the capacity of that organisation in and of itself, but what's their public profile? What other corporates are they working at? How easy is it going to be for them to source $50,000? And sometimes that will also lean us towards saying that that organisation has actually got a high chance of being able to fund this project or actually continue this project without us. And then a couple of the other areas that we always look at is a risk outcome profile. So again, we're looking at what's the assurance, and nothing is guaranteed, but looking at this with all that we know about this project and the organisation, what's the likelihood of these outcomes being achieved, or is there some significant risks to these outcomes being achieved? And that might come from the organisation or that community, or unfortunately, you can't discount the external operating environment. And we've had to make some of those decisions. Obviously, the last 13 years, we've had COVID as a major external operating situation that we've had to manage. And even now, as we look to this current round of applications, we'll have to keep in mind the turmoil that we're currently facing due to the crisis in the Middle East and just the local cost of living impacts, etc. So you're always mindful of the operating environment that we're in and making sure that we're making a balanced decision, because the other thing to keep in mind is we're making a decision now for a project. Generally speaking, our projects are running 12 to 24 months into the future. So we don't have a crystal ball, but we are trying to make a really solid decision at this time with the information that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think it's really fabulous to see the number of giving circles now that are across Australia. And each one of us do things a little differently. We all have our different flavors. And I really love that, because whether it's 100 women or one of the other giving circles, being a part of a giving circle is such a fabulous experience. But we do all things, very differently. And what do you think is the differences that we do that's quite unique to the way that we run our giving circle?
The number one difference for 100 Women is definitely the fact that we provide money for offshore projects. So it is very unique to 100 Women. Traditionally, giving circles are locally based. They start with their own community, and that's sort of the model that giving circles started on way back when. But 100 Women has looked at that a little bit differently and reaped the rewards of having that broader view. So they are Australian-based charities, and about 6% of all of the charities registered with our Australian not-for-profits commission are working overseas.
6%.
6% of the total.
Of the total, yes.
Yeah, the total. Not a huge number, but so they're Australian-based charities, and they'll be working more often than not with partners on the ground in the host country. So they have that relevant expertise, local knowledge, community touch points, and real great understanding. And look, a lot of these charities are working in Africa and Asia, third world countries where you can't actually fundraise from the general population because of the levels of poverty that broad community experience. So they basically fundraise here in Australia and then be able to direct those vital funds to grassroots charities on the ground. So we've set that up purposefully from the beginning, and we've had great success in funding into those countries. And you know what? Our members absolutely love it. They really resonate with being able to provide their money to the giving circle, and then collectively we're investing in both, say, local projects here either in WA or across Australia, but then really without fail every year we've had at least one project that we've funded offshore. And the causes and the challenges that women and girls are facing a little bit different to what they are here, but members here in our giving circle really helping women and girls in other countries with challenges, and they love that diversity in their giving. And the fact too that because of our connection with our recipients, they really get to understand what's happening. So even though it may feel as though it's a long way away in a country in Asia or in Africa, for example, they are connected to that project, what's happening. We have lots of opportunities for our members to follow that project and follow the outcomes that funding is providing.
That diverse mix of grant recipients that you can support just through your one donation is really great when you can support organisations here in Australia as well as internationally. I mean, even, we're based here in Perth, but we've had some fabulous projects in the eastern states as well. And I think it comes back to that feeling of, no matter whether you're a girl or a woman, here in Australia or around the world, we want each and every woman to be given the same opportunities. And in fact, the impact that we can have with some projects on, with very little money in some of our international grants has been extraordinary. It's just, and I think that they make them really memorable. They really stick out in your mind.
For sure. The Australian dollar can go a long way in a place like Cambodia.
Yeah. Well, I was very lucky to, head to Cambodia myself last year and actually get to meet some of the organisations on the ground there that we have funded. And I just came back so immensely proud of our members to see the importance of giving, right around the world. And I think, you mentioned COVID. I think, those experiences show us that we can't be insular in our thinking. We are interconnected. Everything is connected. We cannot leave our international sisters to not experience the same things that we get to do here in Australia. And so, I'm really proud that we do that in 100 Women. We see that difference. But I suppose everybody has a passion project that they like to see funded. I mean, in the same token, we have a lot of members that are really passionate about our regional areas here in Australia. And we've had some fabulous projects that we've been able to support in regional areas too, which has been wonderful to see. But I think it comes back to, as you say, that diversity of the mix that we can fund and support. I want to ask you, why do you think 100 Women's methodologies have worked so well when you sort of, think back over the last 13 years?
Look, we've got a great team. I certainly come to my role with great support from a number of members and volunteers that have been with us for a long time who bring their personal experience and expertise to the table. We're constantly looking for the small improvements, the small refinements, understanding where there might have been a speed bump or something that caught us out, and being open to review and reflection around what happened there that didn't really go as well as we had intended and what could we do better. I spent a lot of my time at Lotterywest helping with the process and the efficiencies and looking both internally and externally about how we can be, a best practice leading grant maker. So when you're thinking about it day in, day out, it then naturally seeps into other areas of work, and it definitely then has those questions occurring for us at 100 Women in terms of the implementation. And then, more strategically too, when the 100 Women board is setting its directions and its priorities, I think we're very good at making sure that circling back and reflecting, and are we on track? What are our values here? How we are living up to that? How we are delivering on what we say that we're going to? It's that constant point for continuous improvement and reflection. People come to 100 Women with a very similar or at least aligned valuables and principles. So then collectively, we're all got our money in the grants pool. We're all working together with our time and our expertise for an outcome that we're all buying into. So in that sense, when you're all rowing together, it's actually really easy then to keep the boat on track and get us over the finish line year in, year out when we get to actually award the grants.
I want to touch on, I suppose, one of the other unique points of our organisation, which is the gender lens that we use when we're awarding grants. We are looking for projects that support women and girls in particular. Our membership is mostly women, but it's not just women. We encourage everyone to become members. Anyone who wants to take a gender lens in their investing, we encourage to join our organisation. When we talk about investing in women not just being the right thing to do, but the smart thing to do, and the research that actually backs up that investment, can you tell me a little bit more about the research around that?
It's economically proven that investing in women, as you say, Alicia, is the smart thing to do. And both, say, offshore in maybe a third world country setting, as well as in a developed economy and country like Australia, women are just community minded. They're family minded. And when they are given a leg up for more education or for more economic opportunities, that benefit extends well beyond them. It extends to their family members, it extends through generations, and those ripple effects are felt throughout the community. And a lot of the time, the projects that we'd be looking to fund are a community of women or a cohort of women. So they're actually lifting each other up. Very broadly speaking, when we hear politicians or the media reporting on women, there is economic gains, benefits to education, employment, health outcomes when there's investment for women, when women are returning to the workforce, when women have opportunities around climbing the corporate ladder, when there's outcomes around health research and health outcomes to make sure that we've been studying the impacts for both men and women. So yes, there's a lot of data and research and evidence that backs up this claim. And I think it's really starting to be well known and well understood that it is a smart investment to have that gendered giving. And there's more and more organisations who may give broadly across the community, but might actually segment out a portion of their available funds to give with a gendered lens.
Because it's not that we don't want to invest in men and boys, it's that we see that there is a grants pool and there's investment already sometimes in those areas, and that actually women and girls projects can actually be missed. And so we're trying to level the playing field and ensure that there's investment right across our community.
Yes, and as I mentioned or touched on earlier, sometimes people don't understand that to invest in a woman or a women's project, it actually looks slightly different. So it's their understanding the cohort, it's understanding that particular nuance or what the challenge is. I think, unfortunately, one of our biggest social challenges around family and domestic violence, the investment in funding to solve that problem has to no doubt go across the whole community and go from teaching children in primary school about respectful relationships and through their secondary years consent. But what those investments look like and how they are targeted for our different cohorts, boys, girls, different ages, people of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander background versus recently arrived refugees and migrants, it actually looks different. So the projects, the investment and the solutions for all of those cohorts looks different and has to be tailored differently.
It's funny you say that, I think the business case is now more recognised. And I even personally, just even over the 13 years that we've been around, I've seen the ups and downs of it. I've seen, when we really had to build that business case when we first started the organisation, to feeling like, we feel like we've got it, we know it, and we're recognizing it. And then there's little dips. And I think we're probably seeing one of those little dips right at the moment where, internationally we're seeing a lot of aid money being pulled away. By far women and girls will be at the brunt of that. And so now more than ever, we see this need again for that investment in women and girls.
Especially that investment around diversity and inclusion. So when we say the investment in women, it's also the investment in then our First Nations women. It's the investment in our called communities as well. So
the intersections,
The intersections are really important and, as you say, quite topical at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I want to finish off with just some reflections from you around the impact from our last 13 years. You know, we've been running for 13 years, 1,500 expressions of interest being reviewed. From all of those years, what have been the moments that really stayed with you?
I've had the privilege to be able to connect with some beneficiaries over the years when you're following up with grant recipients post the awarding of the grant, and then they've been able to implement their project. So whenever you have that opportunity to be able to hear directly from a beneficiary around the impact that our funding has had on a particular person, and they're able to talk about the positive change that's come into their life and some of their outcomes that have been realized, and they may have really thought that it was not possible or sort of a long road ahead before they could get there. That's when you know that the work is worthwhile and provides you with hope, because you can see and touch that outcome.
It's real people,
so to speak. It's real. It's real people telling you what you're doing makes a difference. So that's no doubt really, I guess, reassuring and reaffirming. And sometimes, though, you don't need to always have that point of contact with a beneficiary. The other really encouraging instances or moments that stay with me are when we find out about a project getting additional funding. Maybe we were helping them with a pilot or an early test case where they've been able to also engage some evaluation or a researcher. They've been able to do that. Then they've been successful in receiving other philanthropic or corporate funding, or sort of the ultimate government funding, because that really then embeds long-term operations and sustainability for that program. And for an organisation, when they've got that long-term commitment to funding, it's really vital for our not-for-profit sector to be able to have some security around long-term funding and not be going from sort of 12 months to 12-month contract. That instability is really tricky. So again, we have a really high success rate with a vast majority of the projects that we've funded still operating.
90%, in fact, 90% of our projects still exist today, either, you know, within their organisation or outside. What does that mean? Like, tell me why that's important.
It's really important because it means that if the project and the program is existing, it's meeting a need, solving a problem, capitalizing on an opportunity for a particular beneficiary group. And more important than that, it must be funded.
Yeah.
To still be in existence.
It's doing something right.
It's doing something right. And we've only ever provided a one-off grant. So that organisation has been successful in securing funding from elsewhere. And as I said, that could be from other philanthropic funders, government funders, or even the service itself has built in a fee for service. So look, the not-for-profit sector is quite fragmented, and no doubt the need is high, but sometimes too the competition for funding can be great. So when we're investing in projects that have that sustainability and that long-lasting effect, you know the organisation is being efficient and effective at all levels of the organisation. They must be being strategic and considered from their board right through to their operationalisation or the operation staff. It's a kudos to that organisation that they're doing well, and it also just reaffirms to us at 100 Women that our robust processes and that our due diligence is looking at the right elements that then lead us to getting down to those finalist organisations. Our process is bubbling the right calibre projects to the top.
Yeah, which is what you want. As someone who contributes your money, you want to not only walk away from our events going, wow, that's incredible, but really knowing over that long term, these organisations and the projects are really having the impact that we want. So, you know, over the last 13 years, 1.69 million that we've been able to invest, 49 projects, 9 different countries, over 39,500 women and girls directly impacted. You more than probably most people in the organisation know what it takes to build a process to support numbers like that. What do you feel when you hear that?
Sometimes it's a little bit hard to believe, really, but I'm hopeful because I think sometimes you can feel really disheartened that the problems are overwhelming and that it can be really hard to sort of make a difference. And so then sort of why should I bother? But I think 100 Women has produced a model and enrolled a community and a collective group of women and men working together to show that your contribution, your small donation or your larger donation, if that's available to you, when pulled together as a collective is actually really impactful and is making change, is making real positive change in the lives of women and girls. And you can feel hopeful and you can feel that your actions and your choices with your philanthropic dollars can make a difference when you become a social investor with 100 Women or with the other giving circles that are out there. But there are ways for you to make a difference and feel hopeful in a world that sometimes can just feel all too dark and gloomy.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like I think you come to a 100 Women event and your faith in humanity is restored just by, connecting in with your community, with, being able to support others in the community through our grant recipients. And I think it's so important that we don't lose faith. We don't lose that sense of hope and that, there's always something that we can do. And it takes action, first and foremost. It takes a few dollars that we can bring together, and it takes a community. And we can make a difference in the areas that we want if we come together. So finally, for someone who is listening today and is thinking about joining 100 Women, whether it's $25 a month or $100 a month, what do you want them to understand about where their money goes?
We take the trust that our members place in us when they make a donation very seriously. We have a robust process that has now been tried and tested over many years. And look, we have the results. We have the runs on the board now to show that we are an effective social investor for causes impacting women and girls here in Western Australia, across the country, and indeed overseas, largely in Africa and Asia. So if you're looking to be a social investor, be able to work in a collective manner and have more impact than you ever could have before, I would say 100 Women would be a great match. And that you could also see and keep touch with those projects that we've funded. We do lots of member engagements with our grant recipients, and that even extends to our projects overseas, because as we said earlier, a lot of those are all Australian based. So we have lots of touch points for our members to follow those projects through and really see those outcomes when they're being achieved.
Kristy, thank you so much for all that you've done for 100 Women. To every grant member, every committee member who has served alongside you, you do such an amazing job in our organisation, and, something that we can all feel proud about being involved with. But it takes someone to step up and lead, and we really appreciate your leadership in this space over the last 13 years.
Thank you.
Kristy has spent the last 13 years asking one question on behalf of our members. How do we ensure that every single dollar our members contribute work as hard as it possibly can? More than 1,500 expressions of interest, hundreds of full applications reviewed. Every grant recommendation is made with the rigour of a professional and the conviction of someone who genuinely cares. Our grants process depends on formidable volunteers who volunteer long term. And so we want to recognise not only Kristy Rodwell, but also our long-term volunteers, Michelle Emmett, and our grants manager, Lorna Boyes. When you join 100 Women, your contribution funds real change. A rigorous member-led process built by people with genuine expertise, driven by personal conviction, that puts your money where it will do the most good. 100 Women is a giving circle. Membership starts at $25 a month for bronze level, $50 for silver, and $100 for our gold level. And if you want to contribute more than that, there are options for that too. 100% of your donation goes directly to our grant making. Not a cent is taken to administration. And here's what matters the most. Every single member gets a vote. Whether you're a bronze member or a gold member, you have the exact same capacity to influence our grants. That's how a giving circle works. Since 2014, the process has funded 49 projects across 9 different countries, impacting over 39,500 women and girls. $1.9 million collectively granted, and 90% of those projects still exist today. If you're sitting there with the question, is it worth it? I think today's conversation will be the answer. Find out more and join us at 100women.org.au. The link is in the show notes. Thanks for listening to Community Kind. See you next time.